and welcome to our Fair Chance Conversation series. I'm Matt Joyce,
And I'm Cassie Zumbiel.
and today we are thrilled to welcome Marcus Glover, the co-founder and managing director of Lockstep Ventures. Marcus, thanks for joining us.
It's such a pleasure to be with you.
So, Marcus, this is the first time in this series we've talked about the intersection between fair chance employment and capital investment. So excited to hear about Lockstep and your model. So start by just giving us a sense of what Lockstep is and what makes it unique in the field.
For sure. Well, again, thanks for the opportunity to chat with you guys and the audience today. So I think most recently, the sort of post George Floyd murder shined a light on several areas in our culture, called into question policing, social and criminal justice. And there was a unique spotlight that was put on the role of capital. Capital in many ways was exclusive, left in the hands of few, and fairly undemocratic. And there has increasingly been a dedicated focus to investing in diverse entrepreneurs, women and people of color, as well as the role of funds, fund managers, and those in the industries of private investment, private equity, and venture. Lockstep very much met the moment and has sort of occupied this moment of transformation where the question about access to capital is being raised, and the ability to see venture type returns from entrepreneurs of color and women. And Lockstep, like a few others, have an increased focus on not only investing in diversity, but also investing in mission-oriented investments, things that are focused on areas of impact for traditionally underserved communities. So that is the mandate, if you will, of Lockstep Ventures, which is to invest in companies that are founded by, led by, or serving communities of color with a focus on impact in education, health, wealth, and an area that will, I imagine, delve into a bit deeper, the nature of justice as an investment pillar.
That's great. It sounds like Lockstep prioritizes both diverse leadership and socially conscious business practices. Can you highlight one of the companies in your portfolio that really exemplifies that mission?
Sure. Well, a company that I'm really proud of is a company called Fleeting. And we, in the sort of post-COVID world we live in, we recognize that e-com was essential during COVID. We were all at home and needed our Amazon packages. And that increased level of e-com has not lessened. And what it has done is created a real burden on our commercial trucking systems. We're all familiar with the supply chain apocalypse. Trucking is an industry that is aging out. There aren't enough truck drivers on the road. And Fleeting is a company that is a trucking management company. It helps to connect drivers with rigs as well as shipments. But when we met with Fleeting, they had a unique interest and purpose in fair chance hiring. Many people don't know that a commercial driver's license is obtainable in many cases with a criminal record. And so trucking becomes a vehicle for, in many cases, people to obtain a middle-class living and help our increasingly overburdened trucking systems. And so Fleeting, there are a few others, but has taken on this element of not only commercial scale, but also impact by hiring formerly incarcerated people.
I love that they had already built Fair Chance Hiring into their business model when they approached you, and it sounds like a logical fit. I also know that part of your job on the investor side is probably to bring some of these companies along to Fair Chance practices, and to be able to share that, as an investor, one of your priorities is that they have inclusive hiring practices. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how you speak to your portfolio companies about Fair Chance Hiring and how you kind of make the business case that this could be an important part of their talent strategy.
Well, it's a fairly easy conversation, with the vast majority of founders. I think to their credit, today's founders are increasingly visionary, but they're also increasingly focused on mission and purpose, and are looking and seeking ways that they can imbue their ventures with a sense of purpose and meaning and mission. So Fair Chance Hiring feels like a pretty easy and attainable goal to communicate with founders. I think to swim a little further upstream, what we recognize is the important role that fund managers, asset managers play in the communities where we sell our products and services. What is the condition of those returning citizens in the communities in which our investments are operating? And so Fair Chance Hiring felt like something that private industry, or I should say the world of private investment, could take on as a mission and begin to introduce it to the portfolio companies that are in our portfolio of investments. And so that's kind of what Lockstep has focused on, is giving the support to the founders by letting them know we want to work with you on a sense of mission and how we can employ people who have been traditionally marginalized, and how we can lower recidivism by our investments. So it's a big priority for us.
That's great. And I know that one way that you have done that is through Lockstep's Fair Chance Hiring guiding principles that you've set for your portfolio companies. Can you tell us a little bit more about those and just kind of what your ask is for them?
Sure. So, in the worlds of venture and private investment, you meet a company, you get excited about it, you do diligence, and you're ready to make an investment. And what you do is you prepare a term sheet. And that term sheet says, for this allocation of capital, we're looking for this amount of shares or equity in the company with these terms. And so Lockstep, like any other, has a term sheet. What's unique, I think, is on the back of our term sheet, we also have what we call the Fair Chance Hiring rider. And that additionally states that upon accepting the terms, you also pledge to incorporate Fair Chance Hiring into your venture. And the nature of that is that you incorporate these principles, you seek ways to employ people as you are getting our investment and you're seeking to staff up. You're going to look for opportunities to employ people who have traditionally been marginalized, like formerly incarcerated, perhaps even formerly unhoused. And we ask you to sign that, to become a signer and figure out the way in which Fair Chance Hiring best works for your organization. So once you sign it, we'll find a group like yours, Matt, that can help to create a culture around Fair Chance Hiring and look at HR practices that might have previously been exclusionary and change those HR practices to become more inclusive. And and then we're going to measure it. So we're going to come back to you in a year, and just alongside the markup of your company, we're going to ask, how many people have you been able to employ through these practices, and we're going to record that. So that is the way in which we have used Fair Chance Hiring as a parallel vehicle for our investments, and the ways in which I think portfolio companies adapt those principles in their organizations.
What I love about the term sheet inclusion is that it's sort of codified and replicable, so it's not just a pledge and a culture and something that you're building specifically at your company, but ideally something that other investors could say, hey, this is something we could build into our process in a similar way. And I'm curious, as you're kind of at the leading edge of this in the investor community, kind of where you see the opportunity with peer companies, with other venture capital firms, private equity firms, and just how you're thinking about this from a field perspective.
Yeah, I think the sort of the larger view of all of this is capital has traditionally behaved a bit selfishly. The investor community, as we all know, has a narrow focus on investor returns, or what we call shareholder primacy. And over the years, that conversation has pivoted a bit into this notion of stakeholder primacy, thinking about the communities in which we operate and their needs, and making sure their needs are seen and valued in the value cycle. And so Fair Chance Hiring is important to us. It deeply impacts the communities that are Black and brown, that our founders come from and their ventures are serving. And so we think that there's an important role for capital to be conscious, to be a stakeholder in looking at these issues that are being brought up at the table, and not just so focused on investor returns. The good thing is that our investors demand that of us when they are investing in our fund. They realize that they can realize a gain and seek a return from anywhere, and they prefer to have a return that is consistent with impact KPIs, things that are moving communities towards a place of progress. So it isn't so much as a choice for us, it's a mandate that we have on our backs to not only deliver venture returns, but to make sure communities are benefiting and growing from the investments that we make.
Wow, Lockstep is doing some amazing things. And I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of folks, like founders and entrepreneurs, who want to work with Lockstep to grow their businesses. What advice would you have for those folks who are really interested after hearing this conversation?
Well, the name Lockstep, we always thought of it less as a noun and more as a verb. We wanted to work in lockstep with the greater community, the greater ecosystems that are at play. So we believe deeply in partnership. We believe deeply in collaboration from all segments. So folks in the nonprofit and foundation world, we want to lock arms with. Folks that are in investment roles, we want to lock arms with. Folks in government, we want to work in lockstep with. So that, I think that's the first thing, is we are a willing and open partner. I think as it relates to folks who might be visionary and thinking about ventures, I think you can go to our website, which is, it's a very open door to show us and talk to us about your innovation, your venture. Venture is a business that is typically not like a bank. We're not underwriting every loan, so I don't want to make the false assumption that we can underwrite any and everything. We have a pretty narrow and very specific thesis. But even if we don't underwrite, we always look for ways that we can be helpful. So please just reach out to us at www.lockstepventures.com.
Thanks, Marcus. I mean, my just quick reflection as we close out is our field doesn't have a ton of tools yet to encourage companies to sort of behave differently and become more inclusive. You know, we have what we do, which is much more sort of encouraging folks to build out their talent strategy and access more people and do it sort of through internal supports. You know, we have a legal field that's making sure that folks are keeping in compliance and using that as a tool. And this just feels like a whole new tool, right? It feels like both the ability to access capital, which most every business needs to do, you know, comes with certain conditions that sort of affect their behavior. But also, as you mentioned, the ability of investors who do have that deep relationship with founders to start to plant some of that culture from the beginning. And so I'm so encouraged by this as sort of as it grows, really a new resource or a new tool for the Fair Chance field to be able to really get businesses started thinking this way from the beginning of their ventures.
Yeah, I'd love to leave you
give us
with
the
this
last word.
one thought. Yeah, for sure. So I like to imagine, you know, sort of 30 years ago, there was a young founder, much like a founder who would come and see me today. 30 years ago, that founder's name was Jeff Bezos. And he had a big, bold, brave vision of how brick and mortar would, you know, disappear and e-com would take over the world. And there were investors like myself, like many who are in the audience today, who heard Jeff Bezos's pitch and loved his vision. And what I imagine is if one of those investors had said, you know, Jeff, I love your vision. I think what you're doing is great. I want to write you a seed investment check of $500,000. But what I also want you to do, Jeff, is realize that as you take over all of our commercial systems, you have the ability to transform culturally. And this whole notion of overcrowded prisons and recidivism, you can deeply impact it. And I want you to embrace fair chance hiring as you build this company called Amazon. Now, 30 years later, if that had happened, we might not have recidivism as we do today. And so the saying is, the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time is today. And so what will the next 25 years look like if more companies embrace fair chance hiring and more investors use it as a tool to compel companies to adapt those principles? We might see in another 25 years the next Amazons that are fair chance hiring providers and maybe even having the rate of recidivism in our companies, in our country. So that's what excites me. That's what wakes me up and gives me a sense of purpose in our work.
Awesome. What a great vision to wrap up on. Marcus, thank you for the work that you're doing and for the work that Lockstep's doing, and look forward to seeing how all of this evolves. Appreciate your time.
Thank you both. Happy holidays and Happy New Year, and look forward to seeing you in the new year.